There's no time.
The time is
13.
o'clock. Hey, you guys. It's episode 128.
Yeah, what we got today?
We're doing more true crime today. One of these was a request by a listener, the Toy Box Killer.
Okay.
And I thought that I'd also been wanting to do the Beauty Queen Killer for a while too. And since these are kind of similar offenders, and thankfully they're both dead, so I figured I would put them together on one particular show.
Okay.
So we're going to do those two. I should say the Toy Box Killer, even though he's called the Toy Box Killer, they're not sure if he killed anyone. I mean, they're pretty sure that he did kill people, but they never found any bodies. You know what I mean? He was convicted of like rape and torture and stuff like that, but
Okay.
they never did find any bodies, but they're pretty sure that he killed a bunch of people too.
Well, were there people missing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the fact they never found them, they just go
Right.
and call him killer because they're just like, yeah, we're just assuming.
Okay.
But yeah, so those are the two cases that we're going to talk about today. Before we do that, I don't really have that many shout outs other than, just like I say every time, Faceless Villain 2 is out on audiobook, and thank you to everybody that has purchased a copy. And also, if you like it, please leave a review if you haven't already. It's very helpful. I'm actually going to be re-recording volume 1 probably in a week or two, so I don't know how long it's going to take. It probably won't take as long as the second one because I've read it so many times and it's only like half the length.
Although by the time this gets out, that may have already be underway, re-recording.
It should, yeah, because, that's kind of next on the agenda,
Right.
like after I record this show. So hopefully by the time this episode comes out,
Yeah.
it'll be
underway
or like at least kind of close to completion. So that'll be something
nice.
to look forward to. Yeah. Also, I think, let's see, the only other thing was our last movie review, which was Man with Two Brains, a comedy. We don't do a lot of those. So go check that out if you haven't seen it. Also, I think I mentioned on the last couple shows that I'm starting to interact more on Patreon, giving patrons like a day early. They get early access to all the shows. So, I put a link on there so you can watch them the day before everybody else gets to see them.
Somebody asked about Instagram. We don't have
yeah,
one,
I know. It's like, I really, really do need to get around to that because it's like believe me, I have Michael from A Starry Night.
Yeah.
He's like always crawling on my ass about
doing that.
Doing Instagram. And I'm like, I know I should. And it's like so many people are on Instagram, but it's like, God, it's like yet another thing that
Right.
I have to figure out and do. And it's just like, I haven't had time, but I think eventually I'll probably get around to doing one.
How would that help our listeners that were on Instagram?
Well, it's just,
It's just like another version of Facebook, kind of, right?
Well,
just if you trade
sorta.
photos.
Yeah, it's just photos and hashtags and shit like that.
Okay.
But yeah, so I don't know. Eventually, I'll probably get around to it. One thing I did get around to was I actually redesigned my website and redesigned my blog to kind of look more modern, have newer photos and blah de blah. Change the design a little bit. So
we got to get a new intro too.
Yeah, well, we've only had this one for like a year, right? Yeah, because the new one is from last year.
Eventually, we're going to have to get another one.
Yeah.
It's a good one, but it's supposed to change them out every year.
I know, but, like I said,
You don't feel like doing it.
I don't feel like doing it. And I have like, because I like that one, and like I said, I've already got a million other things to do, and I never get around to doing shit like that.
Okay.
But I might. It's just when I have time, I'll do it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I've got a huge list
Do what
of
you
shit I
gotta
gotta
do.
do. I know.
Do
I'm
what you
just
gotta
saying.
do.
But yeah, so and I've been trying to interact more on Patreon. If you guys haven't noticed, like I said, I put the early links up there. I give like heads up on what the week's topics are going to be, like a couple days ahead of time, and posting videos. I think I put one up of deer and kitties. And stuff like that.
Deer walking around in the neighborhood.
That was a while back. I put that one up, but yeah, we put other stuff up there too. So go check that out if you want to become a patron. That would be super cool, and we would really appreciate it. Okay, so I think that's about all the shout outs that we have. So let's kind of start talking about the Toy Box Killer.
All right.
Otherwise known as David Parker Ray. That's the dude's name.
Okay.
Now, like I said, he was ultimately convicted of rape and torture and not of murder because they never did find any bodies. But they are presuming because he had accomplices, a couple of whom were women. One of whom was his daughter, and one of whom was his girlfriend. So that's special.
How the hell does this happen?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. It does seem like a huge scumbag.
All right. So
family.
where was this?
This was actually out in New Mexico and also in Arizona. Now they think that from people that went missing around that area, knowing his modus operandi, and from talking to his various accomplices. Police are speculating that he may have killed as many as 60 people.
I think I know who you're talking about now.
Yes.
You're talking about the guy that had the trailer and would keep those women, and then he'd brainwash them and let them go. Some of them.
He didn't brainwash them. He drugged them.
Drugged them, right, yeah.
So, mostly so they wouldn't
remember that guy.
Remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, David Parker Ray.
He sicked the dogs on him, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. This guy was really fucking special.
I didn't know his daughter was involved in that.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, we'll get to that. This is like I said.
Yeah, this is a good one.
These two dudes are just. I mean, we talk about a lot of scumbag serial killers and a lot of scumbag murders and stuff, but these two.
Yeah, big scumbag. Okay. This is back in the 90s, then, right?
Yeah. But he had been doing it for a really long. Like I said, they don't even know how long he'd been doing it for. So they call him the Toy Box Killer. As you said, because he, after they caught him, they discovered that on his property, which was in New Mexico, in a place called Elephant Butte.
Yeah. Whatever that is.
It's right near Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Yeah. But he had, on his property, he had this big trailer that he apparently spent $100,000 soundproofing and equipping with all kinds of fun torture equipment, including gynecological chair, all kind of whips, chains, machines that he built.
I think it had like disco lights and.
I don't know about that.
I think it had disco lights and sound system too.
I don't know about that, but the pictures that I saw of it, it's just like because he had been a mechanic, so he knew how to like build all these particular toy. Like he would build things to like shock people, and it's like.
From what I remember, this case, he had basically like a little mini video studio and everything that he would record this stuff.
Yeah.
That's how I remembered it.
Yeah, he did record it. And he also had a mirror on the ceiling so that his victims could watch what he was doing to them while he was doing it. So, yay. So, yeah, this guy, David Parker Ray, born in 1939. Now, his parents were allegedly abusive. His dad left when he was only 10 years old. He had a sister named Peggy, but she doesn't really figure into the story all that much. So after the dad left, him and his sister ended up going and living with their grandparents. And this was in Mountain Air, New Mexico. Now, their grandparents were hard asses, real disciplinarian, blah-de-blah, which, that doesn't work out so good when you have some kid with this particular proclivity. So the grandfather would like beat up the kids and all this other kind of crap. David also didn't do too well in school. He was real like kind of awkward looking, and he was really quiet, and people thought he was a weirdo. Rightly so. Yeah. But so, he wasn't like popular with girls, and he used to get bullied and stuff like that. So that was kind of another thing that was going on. And he kind of got into drugs and drinking and stuff to kind of, get out of the pain or whatever. Now, around this time, apparently, he started his fascination with sadomasochism. Now, some of the sources that I saw said that every now and then, like his drunk-ass dad would, bumble into town to, like, see his kids, once every couple years or something like that, and go, "Hey, here, kid, I brought you a big bag of S&M magazines. Knock yourself out." So, weird. Wow. That's how it is in their family.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad. Bring me a big fucking thing of
some weird shit
S&M magazines. Yeah. And they were like, this was like, the old school ones that were like I don't even know how consenting some of those women in the photos were. You know what I mean? It was like that kind of shit. So yeah, so the dad would do that. So after he gets out of high school, he actually joined the army, and he was in the army at honorable discharge, all that kind of crap. He also worked as an auto mechanic and as an airplane mechanic, I believe, in the army. He did mechanic work while he was in the army. Now, they're not really sure when his crime spree might have begun. Later on, somebody, because he ended up actually, over the years, he ended up being married a bunch of times. Like, he was only married, like, he was married 4 times, I think. And, like, the last one was, like, for 10 years. So it's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of this shit was going on when he was married, or if it was just something he did on the sly, or I don't know. But, apparently one of his wives or his fiance or something like that, he apparently told her that his first victim was when he was still a teenager. It was like a girl or an older woman who he like kidnapped and like tied her to a tree and tortured her and murdered her. And this was when he was still pretty young. So I don't know. They never did find any crime that, you know, corresponded to that. So I don't know
He may
if
have
that's.
lied.
But yeah, he might have made that up. But like I said, you know, from all the, you know, his accomplices' statements and from, you know, trying to figure out like women that went missing in this particular area when he was living there and stuff like that, they do think that he killed people. They just don't know where the bodies are. You know what I mean?
He was pretty methodical from what I remember. Highly organized.
Yeah.
A whole system.
And like I said, he had help.
Yeah.
Now, for a long time, he was just living in this fucking shit. He actually, he was a mechanic, but then later on he started working at the Elephant Butte State Park. He was like a forestry ranger or something. Didn't I just say that on the show about Son of Sam? That is weirdly, because remember when I said about the most common jobs of serial killers, and for some reason like forestry worker type shit was on there, and I'm like, that seems oddly specific.
Maybe it's something that attracts them.
Maybe it's like they like being out in the middle of nowhere, and
outdoors all the time,
and they know like they like knowing all the woods and all that other kind of crap. Maybe that's what it is.
Know where to hide all the bodies.
That's what I'm saying, and that's another thing that makes them think that, you know, probably, and also where he lived.
Maybe they're outdoor type guys anyway to begin with, so they could just kind of get channeled into that.
Yeah.
Plus, he was a veteran, you said, so he would have had preference in the hiring process.
Yeah.
So, you know, he just gravitated in that direction.
Yeah. So there was that whole thing about him, like, you know, working in a state park, and also where he lived, like his property was right near this huge body of water, like a big reservoir. So, I mean, the reservoir has been searched, but they're like, it's way too big and too deep to, like, you know, search it super effectively. But they're speculating that there are probably some bodies in there. Because I saw a documentary about it, and, like, one of the investigators on the case was just like, you can't just have this here, right here where this dude is, like, torturing and raping people and not have bodies in there. He's like, there's just got to be bodies in there. We just haven't found them yet.
Yeah.
So they're not sure when his shit started. And all this stuff was going on all this the whole time. Now, he didn't get caught. No one had any idea that he was up to any of this shit. And people that knew him, like that worked with him, and later on, like after he got caught, they were like amazed. They were just like, oh, he was such a nice man. You know what I mean? They just couldn't believe it. So he was pretty good at keeping the shit on the down low, I guess. So they didn't catch him until 1999. And this is how he got caught. This was March 22nd, 1999. Again, in Elephant Butte. I just keep saying because I like it. Because it looks like elephant butt, but it has an E.
What is a butte? I thought butte was like aspirin.
No, butte is like a, it's like a, what do you call it? It's like a landscape feature. Okay. It's kind of like a mesa, I think.
In the horse world, butte is like a drug, like aspirin.
Oh, okay.
That you give horses. Okay.
No, it's like I want to say it's like a mesa.
Okay.
But it's kind of, you know what I mean? It's kind of that kind of thing. So, March 22nd, 1999, this 22-year-old girl named Cynthia Vigil, and I think I'm pronouncing it right. It looks like Vigil. It's spelled like Vigil, but when, like, every time I saw, like, a documentary about it, they pronounced it Vigil, so I guess that's how you pronounce it. So, she is running down the street. She's naked, covered in blood, has like a metal dog collar on and dragging like a chain behind her.
Yeah.
She busts into this person's double wide trailer and is like, I got kidnapped and raped and tortured. Please help me. And the person was like, holy fucking shit. This like bloody naked woman just like burst into the house. So they call the cops. The cops come there. And so then she tells them what happened. Now, she had actually been a prostitute. And she said that she was approached by a man and a woman. And the man said that he asked for oral sex. He said, I'll give you $20. Get in my RV. So she didn't think much of it because, like I said, he had a woman with him. So, you know.
That's her job. So, you know.
Right. Yeah. And so she gets in there. And once she gets inside, they tie her up and gag her and everything, like to put the metal thing around her neck and like cover her eyes up and stuff. So then they drive for about an hour and then they drag her inside a trailer, chain her to a bedpost, and then, and this is so fucking creepy, and like I heard some of this too. This asshole, David Parker Ray, he has made an audio tape of himself describing what he's going to do to the victim. This is how many fucking victims he's had that he's like, he can't even be bothered to like come in there and like tell them, hey, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. He put it on a fucking audio tape so he can just click play for maximum efficiency.
He got tired of giving that monologue.
I guess. Yeah. And it's like, I couldn't listen to the whole tape because I'm just like, this will like depress the shit out of me.
I've heard it.
I heard like it starts out
deadpan. And
it starts out like, hey, bitch.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you're listening to this tape, it means I picked up another hooker or like some other shit like that. And I'm like, oh my God.
It's pretty tacky.
He's just like a total.
And he's like, there's gonna be other captives in there. Don't look to them for any help. They can't help you.
Yeah. It's like that kind of crap.
He usually had more than one at the same time.
And so he's like, okay, well, you aren't to speak unless spoken to. It's like, you have to call me master and you have to call this other woman mistress. We're going to like, you know, you have to do whatever we say. We're going to feed you like a dog, like on the floor and all this other kind of crap.
They have to have sex with dogs.
Yeah. Well, and that was another thing too. It's like this poor woman that, she said she was chained up. They fed her from a bowl on the floor like a dog. Yeah. They would invite people over. Like they had this wooden contraption that would like, and then they'd strap you to it so you were, you know, like bent over it. Yeah. And then he would invite friends over to rape her. He would let his dogs rape her. Yeah. Basically, it's just
Did
like...
they ever ID the friends?
One of them.
And he thought it was all consensual BDSM, or he knew that they were captives?
I'm not really sure, actually.
He go down for it? Go to prison? Do you know?
One of them did.
One of them did? Right.
Yeah. But yeah, some of the others, there was actually speculation that there were like cops involved or anything like that. But I couldn't really find a lot of evidence of that, obviously. But so she had like the most horrible shit. She had like every conceivable thing like stuffed in every conceivable orifice. And it's just like this horrifying, horrifying shit. So she's been chained up for 3 days in this fucking scumbag's house. Now, one day, and he had cattle prods and shit like that too. And like I said, he would shock them, and it's just so all right. So David Parker Ray, he goes to work one day as he usually did. Now he left the woman there to look after her, but apparently the woman like toddled off into the kitchen to make a sandwich or something like that.
Make a sandwich.
Yeah, and she accidentally left the keys to the handcuffs, like right where Cynthia could get them. And she was like,
she snatched them. Huh?
So she snatched them up and like started unlocking, and she got a phone and called 911. But then the woman, mistress, she comes rushing in and is like, nuh-uh, and they start fighting. Now, Cynthia, and I was like, you fucking go, girl. She found a fucking ice pick, and she stabbed that bitch in the back of the neck. She didn't kill her. It didn't kill her. Right. But, you know, it made her, like, fall down, and she, you know, and so then she's like, she got the fuck out of there. And she's wet. She didn't even give a shit. She was naked and covered with blood. She just went running down the fucking street, ran about a mile, and turned up in the trailer where she was found. And actually, the 911, they had the phone call that she had made The woman had come storming in there, and so it was a hang up. But even though it's a hang up, the police are still going to investigate that shit because they figure, oh, somebody snatched the phone out of her hand. So they went there. So when she went to the other trailer, where the rescuer was, that woman called 911 too. So the cops just descended.
Right.
So they knew the address of the trailer and they already went there. Now they went to the trailer and no one was there. However, only a couple of blocks from the trailer, they apprehended David Parker Ray and his girlfriend, whose name was Cindy Hendy. Now listen to this fucking bullshit story that they gave. Because they were apparently out, because they're like, oh shit, our sex slave escaped, and they were out looking for her. So the cops pull her over and is like, what the fuck? And they were like, oh yeah, well, we did kidnap her and we were keeping her hostage, but it's because she is a heroin addict and we were doing an intervention. So we were doing it for her own good.
Yeah.
And I was like, and the cops were like,
they didn't buy that shit.
I don't think so. So the cops are like, yeah, fuck you guys. And they arrested him. And then they start searching the property and are completely horrified by what they find. So, and it was sad because like I said, I watched a couple documentaries about this, and some of the investigating officers were just like, this is a little bitty town. I mean, Elephant Butte. I think it was only 1,500 people lived there. And they're like, the cops had never seen anything like this before. They're like, obviously this David Parker Ray guy, it's like he has spent a great deal of time and money putting all this shit together. He's like, it was unbelievable. Yeah. He's like, you go in this fucking trailer and he's just the walls are just full of just all these different fucking instruments. It looked like a David Cronenberg movie in there. It's he's got cattle prods and oxygen tanks and he's got medical books and all this other kind of crap. So he knows the best way to torture you, without you dying and all this other kind of crap. And it's just horrifying. They were just horrified.
Yeah. And when you see the outside of this place, it kind of reminds me of a place we had in California called the Salton Sea. And, they have whole documentaries on this place. It's this wasteland.
It's super weird.
It's a wasteland, weird place. Just look up the Salton Sea. There's whole documentaries on it. But that's kind of what that area looked like from what I remember.
Yeah.
Outside his trailer. Dusty, dingy, desert kind of place.
Yeah, it's just a big desert.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's, Elephant Butte. It's not that far from Truth or Consequences, which is, not a huge town either, but, it's a bigger town. This place was just a little town that just sprung up around this reservoir. It's it's kind of a big tourist area. Yeah. They're sometimes during tourist season, they can get hundreds of thousands of people coming through there, but they're only about 1,500 people live there.
Look like Bombay
full-time.
Beach.
Yeah.
Just Google Bombay Beach. It's at the Salton Sea. It kind of looked like that. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
What I remember.
So they go through and they find all this horrifying shit. They find, actually, among all the other horrifying artifacts, they find a videotape of David Parker Ray and his girlfriend torturing another woman. Now, they don't know who this woman is because her face was completely covered in duct tape. But she was screaming and everything on the tape, and they were just doing horrible shit to her. But she did have a very distinctive tattoo on her leg. So they were hoping that they would be able to identify her. So they kind of made that public. So there was that whole thing. Now, they wanted to know because they said, obviously, this dude has been at this a long time, so this can't be the only woman that he has done this to. So they told the media everything about it and said, we want more victims, to see if anybody else has gone through this kind of shit. So the problem, too, and I know that this is terrible, but, Cynthia, the girl that escaped, she was a prostitute. So they're just kind of credibility is an issue. As it usually is with sex workers. So they were like, well, we need more people that maybe aren't prostitutes, hopefully. So when they released it to the media, they actually did get a woman come forward. Her name was Angelica Montano. And she said they had done the same thing to her, that she, I don't think she was a prostitute or she was doing anything. These two just kind of like tricked her.
I think they got her out of a bar. Is that the one that they talked to?
No, that was that was a different one, I think.
One? Okay.
Well, no, it might have been because they did pick up a lot of people from this bar. I think it's called the Blue Waters Saloon or something like that, where a lot of people hung out.
Tonk.
Yeah, there was pictures of it in the documentary, so they might have got her from there. But so yeah, this Angelica girl was kidnapped, raped, and tortured. She was in the toy box for 3 days, and then they drugged her and just left her on the side of the highway. Now, she was found wandering around in the desert, and an off-duty cop found her, and she told him what had happened, and evidently he believed her, but he's like, okay, well, we have to go to the police and report this, and she said she didn't want to. Because she said she was afraid of the police because of her past, and she didn't think they would believe her, and all this other stuff. So that was that story. Now, I think she said that she did report it to the cops, and they didn't do anything about it.
Evidently,
so it's two sides.
Evidently, what the guy would do with him before he let him go is he'd blindfold him and give him a bunch of weird stuff like LSD and mind-altering drugs, and then put headphones on him that would repeat phrases over and over again and try to like mind wipe them to make them think that the whole thing was just a hallucination, and then let him go. That's how I remembered that going.
I didn't see anything that said anything about that.
But I most of them from a documentary I saw.
He gave him like your standard like date rape drugs. He would give him like phenobarbital, stuff like that, where they wouldn't really remember entirely what happened. Like as he would pretty much roofie them.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, the ones he let go, he would do that. And I'm assuming that he probably killed some of them too, because he did say to some of the victims, if you don't cooperate or you try to escape, I'll kill you. So they think that probably some of them were killed.
I remember seeing a documentary on it, and they said that he was brainwashing them before he let him go too. But that was just that one documentary that I saw.
Yeah, I didn't really see anything that said that. I mean, there might have been another dude that you're thinking of too that might have been doing that. Okay,
it was that one.
Now, at this stage, they like I said, the woman on the videotape whose face you couldn't see because it was covered with duct tape, they put out a picture of her tattoo. Like I said, that was on her ankle. It was like kind of a really nice like floral tattoo. And they eventually discovered this woman alive. Her name was Kelly Garrett. So she actually came forward. Now, this is a fucking shitty ass story. This is what happened to her. So she had just gotten married. And a couple days after the wedding, like her and her new husband kind of got in a fight and she got kind of pissed off. So she's like, man, I'm just going to go hang out with my friends because I'm sick of looking at your face. Mm-hmm. So she gets some of her friends. They go out to play pool or whatever. And they end up at this bar.
This is the one I remember.
Now, from the bar, she said, and she was interviewed, and I was like heartbroken watching this poor woman. It's like she had one beer, and she didn't even finish it because she's like, I drank part of the beer, and then one of my friends, wanted a ride home or something. So I went to give her a ride home, and then I came back to the bar. Now, one of the friends that she was with was Jessie Ray, David Parker Ray's daughter.
Yeah.
This is scary because she had known this woman for like 3 years. You know what I mean? She's like, I had no reason to think that she would do anything. Yeah. But apparently Jessie Ray, this scumbag's daughter, drugged this poor girl's beer.
Yeah, and kind of like sold her to the dad or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
And it's like, basically, it's like, oh, well, I'll give you a ride home. And then she didn't remember what happened. And she's like, the shitty thing is that because, she was found like wandering around like 3 days later and couldn't remember what happened. And she said for like a long time afterward, she kept having these horrible, horrible nightmares and didn't know what they were.
Now, this is the same girl in the video that had the tape all over her face?
Yeah.
Okay.
She had the tattoo. That's how they identified her.
So I guess the tape didn't really hurt her face and they pulled it off.
No.
Okay.
She could, but yeah.
I would think duct tape would damn pull every bit of your hair off.
Yeah, well, maybe it did. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so that's what fucking kills me is that this scumbag's daughter, who was friends with this girl, and just said, oh, I'll drug her and take her back to daddy so he can deal this horrible shit to her. The shitty thing, too, is that because when they found her wandering around and she didn't remember what had happened, so her husband charming fellow that he was. And his parents thought, oh, well, she must have just run off and she was like on some drug fueled binge, or she was like out cheating on him. So the husband like kicked her out.
Damn. He thought she was fooling around on him.
Yeah. And I mean, and she was like, and I couldn't like argue with him because I couldn't remember what happened. She's like, I knew I was hurt.
Right.
She's like, I knew I had probably been raped. She's like, but I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what had happened in all that other time. So that just like fucking killed me that happened to her. But so she actually came forward. And she, you know, as she started like talking to the other victims, the police started talking to her, she started remembering. She's like, oh, well, that's what all those nightmares were that I thought were nightmares. No, that shit really happened. So that's really nice. So once they arrested David Parker Ray and the girlfriend, like I said, her name was Cindy Hendy. Now, Cindy just turned on him like immediately, right? So she said, yeah, she's like, not only did he do all this shit and I helped, but he told her that he had killed 14 people that she knew of, and that he had told her where some of the bodies were. Now, they weren't able to find them, so I don't know like how accurate that information is, but she did say that he had confessed to her that he had killed at least 14 people.
Before he knew her or during
Before he knew her. Because, like I said, he was older. He was, I think when he was arrested, he was 59.
Okay.
So he'd been doing this presumably for quite a long time, right? So
what made him stop killing?
He didn't.
Well, she would have been with him during the time that he would have killed the new ones.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't know.
I don't believe him.
I don't know if he killed people when she was with him and she didn't want to say that, or you know what I mean?
Right.
So at this stage, Cindy Hendy also tells police, his daughter, Jessie, is also in on the shit. And there was another accomplice named Dennis Roy Yancey. Now, Dennis Roy Yancey, had apparently killed his ex-girlfriend, whose name was Marie Parker. So that was one murder that they know, like, and Jessie was involved in that one too.
Jessie's the daughter?
The daughter, yeah. Okay. So that was at least one murder, and that woman was missing. So, you know, and they didn't ever find her. So it was a murder
on the periphery.
Yeah.
Nothing that really linked it directly to the main offender, though.
No.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So evidently, what ended up happening with that was that they arrested Dennis Yancey, and he confessed that he said, David Parker Ray and Jessie, the daughter, they kidnapped his ex-girlfriend Marie Parker. They say they put her in the toy box. She was in there for 3 days. He's like, and then he got sick of her, so he asked me to kill her. So he strangled her, evidently. And then I don't know like what he did with the body or anything like that. But like I said, it's the fucking desert, and there's like a huge body of water, and there's, you know, so it could be anywhere. And he told the police that David Parker Ray said that he would kill me if I didn't do it, and yada yada. So he actually got 2 15-year sentences, second-degree murder, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Now, the daughter said she didn't know nothing about nothing, and she just wasn't even involved with anything, and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know, the cops didn't really buy that either. Cindy Hendy she got 36 years because she did admit to her part in, like, kidnapping and raping and torturing. But she got a little bit lighter sentence because she testified against David Parker Ray and told about the accomplices and everything like that. The daughter was actually, even though she said that she didn't have anything to do with him, they found her guilty of kidnapping. They sentenced her to 9 years, but 6 of them she would be on parole, so she would only end up serving 3. But actually, I don't think she ended up serving any, because David Parker Ray, as part of his plea deal, he's like, look, I'll plead guilty if you let my daughter out. So that's how that all went down. Like I said, Dennis Yancey actually, he only served 11 years because he did like confess to a murder. But he violated his parole and then was put back in prison.
11 years for an actual murder, a first-degree murder.
They,
Boy,
well,
that's light.
I know, but they were saying, oh, well, David Parker Ray made me do it. He told me he was going to kill me if I didn't do it, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I guess it was like mitigating circumstances. Okay. So when it came to David Parker Ray, they said, okay, well, we're going to do 3 trials, like one for each of the victims that they could find. It were Cynthia Vigil, Angelica Montano, and Kelly Garrett. It's the creepy thing was that when Cynthia Vigil, when they did her hearing, the lawyer like puts the fucking like metal collar and the chain that they found her in, like they put it on the table like in front of her, and she just flipped the fuck out. And she actually stood up. I heard the tape of it. She stood up in court and like just pointed at him and said, "Why the fuck did you do that to me, you bastard? Why did you?" And she was just like screaming her fucking head off at him. And I'm like, man, good for you. But they had to take her outside and like, you know, get the ambulance and shit like that to see if she could keep going. But after that, when she came back in, they calmed her down and she came back in. And then David Parker Ray said, I don't want to do 3 trials, all this other shit. I'll plead guilty if you let my daughter out. So that's what they did. He ended up getting 224 years. They actually couldn't have gone ahead with the trial for Angelica Montano anyway, because she actually died before the trial would have come along. But here's the shitty thing. So he gets 224 years, but he didn't really serve any of that sentence because he was still going back and forth to various interrogations and various trial, post-trial whatevers. And they're taking him to a state police interrogation at Lee County Correctional Facility in May of 2002, and he drops dead of a heart attack. I was like, motherfucker. Yeah, it's like, so he didn't, even though he'd been like in custody for like a year or a year and a half or something like that.
Yeah, he was doing all that. He was doing all the litigation stuff. Though,
right. Yeah, he didn't serve any of that shit.
He didn't go to real prison yet.
Yeah, they said they just like, they put him in the room and then all of a sudden he just fucking slumped over and he was fucking dead. Massive heart attack. Damn. It's almost like he did it on purpose, motherfucker.
Well, he was probably under a lot of stress because he got caught. Yeah. And was afraid to go to prison.
But can you imagine, like...
And he was... How old was he at that time? 59? He was almost 60?
Yeah, he was early
and
60s.
From what I remember him, he was a weedy little nasty-looking fucker.
Yeah, he looked like a skinny, rednecky...
Yeah, I don't think he was in very good health. You know what I mean? He didn't look super physically fit. Yeah. To me. So, you know... Eating a fucked up diet and everything, you know, died of a heart attack. Yeah. Probably clogged up arteries.
It's like, it's not like I wish he was still alive, but that seems like, I'm like, well, you got away with it.
Basically, everybody in this story pretty much, they were rough people. These are desert people, and they're low income, you know. These are, we're just going to say, these were a hardy people. You know? Yeah. They were kind of like, you know, the Tuscan Raiders of America. Remember the Tuscan Raiders, the same people? Yeah. They're mean.
I kind of, it kills me whenever, and I think I mentioned this probably on our Killer Couples show, it always kills me when some fucked up dude can get his wife or girlfriend to go along with this shit. And like now apparently, like I said, he'd been married a bunch of times before. I don't really know like if any of his former wives knew of his proclivities or what he was up to or anything like that. I got a feeling
he wasn't doing this for very long.
I don't know though, because it does seem like, I mean, from just the breadth of all the stuff that they found, like all the, you know, toys that he'd made and like machines that he'd made and like videotapes and audio tapes, and it seemed like he'd been at it for a while. I mean, this seemed like an obsession.
Kind of reminds me, you remember Charles Ying and his buddy? Remember Charles Ying, the guys that had the torch?
Leonard Lake. We did a show about them. He
struck me kind of like a Leonard Lake type of guy.
Yeah, that's who I thought of.
You sit around and you fantasize and you have delusions of grandeur and you go and you build things and you build a bunker and then you go brag about how powerful you are to everybody who knows you, and then you kind of form your own little cult, which is basically what Leonard Lake kind of did.
Yeah. It's a very similar kind of
personality. Because they had, what was her name? Cricket. They had Cricket and everything. And it was kind of like a little mini 3 or 4 man cult. And this guy he always kind of struck me as kind of like a Leonard Lake type. A loser.
Yeah.
Loser.
And it really does seem like, though, I mean, when he met Cindy Hendy, she had a real fucked up childhood too. She'd been molested as a child and beaten as a child, and so she wasn't in the best emotional state or mental health or whatever. And she was also into S&M, but it's interesting how. Now, according to him, he said she wasn't a murderer, obviously, so he very slowly, like, introduced her to the rape and torture thing that he was in, because it was a big thing for him. He was, like, he would write about all these fantasies that he had about it. It was, like, the main thing in his life.
I remember the case. I haven't read anything about it recently or seen anything on it, but just my impressions. I remember thinking that he hadn't really been doing this very long. I think that he was lying about it. You know what I mean? I don't think he had the means in order to make because it took him a while to make this dungeon that he had in that trailer. He didn't have that before.
Yeah.
I think he probably in reality maybe only abducted 5-6 people. Maybe he killed 2, 1, something like that. I don't think that he claimed to have killed 15, 16.
Yeah.
If he was bragging to with his girlfriend, I don't believe so.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's hard to say. I mean, when they can't find any bodies and the couple victims that they found were still alive.
Yeah, he was a fantasizer.
Yeah.
Know? And whenever you have a guy that sits around fantasizing, makes this big role playing thing, they're gonna lie. They lie. That's what they do. I think he hadn't been active at this for very long, and I really don't think he had the skill to continue what he was doing for very long until he would have been caught, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
If you want to do something like this and not get caught, you have to kill those victims.
Yeah.
That's the safest way. You can't have them just walking around.
Yeah, even if he drugged them and they forgot stuff.
No, yeah. I would think Leonard Lake had a better chance. And they did kill. Leonard Lake killed a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But they eventually got caught too.
Yeah. Most of them do.
Yeah. So, he was a bad one, but I don't think he killed as many as he claimed.
Yeah, maybe not.
Oh, no, yeah.
Like I said, it's hard to say.
If he did kill anybody, it was maybe only 1 or 2, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because as fixated he was in all this, he would have had a bunch of videotapes. You know what I mean? And he would have recorded what happened with the other ones that he killed. He would have left stuff behind. Yeah. And evidently they couldn't find anything to link him to any people that were dead.
Yeah, the only videotape I've ever heard of being associated with him is that one of Kelly Garrett.
Right.
And they found her.
Where are all the other videotapes? He had video equipment. It was set up like, from what I remember, he had like an audio visual, like a lighting system and everything to light it up, and a good stereo. That's how I remembered it.
Yeah, I mean, it did look like he was videotaping stuff because the people that escaped said that they remembered.
So they're usually in some kind of pattern where they do the exact same thing every time. You know what I mean? Because they're going to want to make a videotape they can remember the event by, and he only had one.
Yeah.
Which evidently he only had one. So that leads me to believe that he hadn't been doing this for very long.
Yeah.
I think he planned it for a long time to build up the courage to do it and to get in the situation to do it. But I'm skeptical.
Yeah. Maybe like you said, skeptical. Maybe just for a long time he was just fantasizing about it, and finally.
And finally he started doing it when he was, in his 50s, where he was in a position financially and where he had a place to do all this, and had the right social connections with it. He had girls, a girlfriend and a daughter, and he had friends, and they were all kind of being scumbags together in a certain area. He was able to kind of weasel his way into this gig, know? That's what I think it was.
I heard that he knew like people at that bar too, and that they would facilitate. You know what I mean? Like they knew what he was doing, but they would help out. Like, hey, there's this girl in here.
That makes you skeptical. What would they have to gain from that?
I don't know.
Maybe because
scumbag's gonna scum.
Maybe they can come over and take her for a ride, that type of deal.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because they did say that he would invite people over and let them rape the victims. So maybe that's all they needed.
That's just rare.
Yeah.
It's just rare to get
It's
people
just like a whole fucking...
Hey, come join us in on this serious felony. We won't get caught.
Come join us on this serious felony.
Yeah, we're not going to get caught.
I need a shirt that says that now.
Yeah, man. If I say this crazy shit, it ends up on T-shirts, and then people start talking about it in the comment section.
That was just a very funny way of phrasing it.
Well, that's what it is.
I know.
You know what I mean? You're going to commit these serious felonies. You're not going to just invite random motherfuckers to come over and partake.
And like just the bartender's just like,
hey,
all right.
What's going on? Yeah.
That sounds like
Get
a party.
you some of this, man. Yeah, it doesn't really
Sounds
work
like a party.
that way.
Well, these really don't sound like the brightest bulbs, I have to say. So I'm not discounting that because I've seen some weird shit.
Right.
But, I don't know. And like I said, I don't think any of those people were arrested. They did arrest most of his
If they were doing shit like that, they were somehow rationalizing it.
Well, yeah. Well,
like
probably.
This is all consensual.
That's
you know
probably what he was saying. Because people
it's all
knew...
part of our culture.
People knew he was into S&M,
right?
So maybe he would tell them ahead of time, oh, well, she's going to sound like she don't want to do it, but that's just all part of the game.
Right, exactly.
That's probably how he sold it to him.
Right.
It's like, yeah, she'll be screaming and shit, but...
Yeah, she's into it.
Don't worry about it. Like, she loves this stuff. That's probably exactly what it was. Because think how easy that would be to do.
Yeah, but then you let him go like that? Nah. A dude that's doing this for real, he's not going to let him go.
I wonder, though, if he hadn't got caught, if he would have eventually started killing him, I imagine.
Oh, yeah.
If he didn't kill any of the other ones. Like I said, they're pretty sure somebody killed Marie Parker. It was either him or his little buddy.
A serial killer is nothing more than a serial rapist. All right. They just happen to kill the victim, And then eventually they start getting into killing the victim. But that's basically what it is. It's a serial rapist. Now, they usually start killing the victim after they have close calls with the law. Or maybe they do a few years for indecent exposure or rape. They get out, they go, that's it, I'm killing them. They're, they're not going to testify against me. And that's usually how it goes.
Well, yeah, that's your escalation right there.
So I think that's what leads me to believe that this guy really hadn't been doing this for very long. I think the media kind of blew him up into more than what he really is.
Well, I mean, that's pretty horrifying that somebody would spend all that time and money making a trailer just to torture people.
Yeah, but we're talking about body count. How many did he kill? I'm not convinced he killed anybody.
Yeah, I don't know. But like I said, they're pretty sure that Marie Parker got killed, but they don't know if it was him or
he probably didn't do it. Didn't they say that the husband was in on it? Chances are the husband did it.
No. That's nothing to do with anything.
Okay.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I thought you were saying there was a murder on the periphery to where a guy killed his wife and then the offender knew about it.
No.
I've been drinking, but I don't think I've been drinking that much. Who killed who in this case? You said somebody killed somebody.
Yeah, Marie Parker.
Who was the daughter,
She was
right?
No.
She
was the ex-girlfriend of David Parker Ray's buddy, like a friend of his.
Okay, yeah.
And that guy, Dennis, he said that Ray told him to kill Marie Parker.
But
he strangled her. That's what he said. He confessed. That's why he got 2 15-year sentences.
The other guy did it, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he said. But he said that Ray told him to do it.
Just because a guy tells you to do it doesn't
I know.
mean...
Well, now, she had been in the trailer for 3 days and they'd been torturing and raping her. But then David Parker Ray says to Dennis, hey, kill her.
Right.
And I'll kill you if you don't. If you ever tell anybody.
But that's what he said.
That's what I mean. So I don't know... how seriously to take that. They never did find her body, but, so
That's
I don't know.
weird. Why can't they find these bodies? They're the ones that are disposing these bodies. Where the hell are they?
Yeah.
What, are the sands shifting so they can't find the exact location?
I don't know. And like I said, it's kind of a big remote area, and there's a big body of water. Like I said, he was like a state park worker, so he knew all the byways and mountains and shit like that. So it's like, yeah, it's easy to say, but it's like, shit, they could be anywhere. The bodies could be anywhere. If he dumped him out in the mountains or something like that, they'd never fucking find him because they'd just be bones now because fucking animals would eat them. Yeah. So, so it's possible, like I said, investigators think it's possible that he may have killed as many as 60 people. Just judging by people that went missing, other reports, his accomplices, saying various things about him and stuff.
You would think he would have fessed up to all of them. If he was already getting 200-something years.
Yeah.
I think he'd want a grandstand.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, well, there's no way of knowing.
No, there's really not. Yeah.
All right.
So, let's take a break right now. And when we come back, we will talk about yet another scumbag. This one, they're sure actually killed a bunch of people. That'd be Christopher Wilder, the so-called beauty queen killer.
I know this one.
So we will be back in just a few minutes.
Okay, everybody. Jenny's got some new shirt designs up. 4 of them. Really good ones, too. Atlanta Ripper, Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm, the H.H. Holmes Murder Castle, and of course, Demon Child, because man said he could. These are updated designs. I think they look really cool. Jenny did a great job on them. Were they fun making, Jenny?
They were very fun. And thank you very much. I think they came out very good.
Yeah, they get really good. They're very high quality shirts. Jenny and I wear our own shirts at certain times when we're trying to put a spotlight on ourselves, and you can put a spotlight on yourselves. If you go ahead and pick up one of these shirts today, you guys are going to love them. Links in the description, www.zazzle.com at 13 o'clock.
Yeah, so go check out our store at www.zazzle.com/13o'clock. We got these 4 cool new t-shirt designs, plus all our old ones if you'd rather get one of the old ones. But these ones are awesome, and you should check them out.
They're also available in women's cut, and they look really cute. Jenny's got some.
So thank you. Go check them out.
She's trying to catch the bubbles.
The Faceless Villain, a collection of the eeriest unsolved murders of the 20th century, Volume 2, includes cases spanning the years from 1960 through 1979, featuring such infamous crimes as the triple homicide at Lake Bodom, the family massacre known as the Good Heart Murders, the serial killings of the Zodiac, Bible John, Jack the Stripper, and the Freeway Phantom, the slaughter of dozens of women and girls along the Highway of Tears and the Texas Killing Fields, and the mysterious death of suspected spy, the Isdal woman, along with dozens of other fascinating and horrifying accounts. Buy it now from Amazon in print, Kindle, or audiobook format. All right, we're back talking about these fucking scumbag serial killers.
Yeah,
man.
show running long. You guys are getting bonus show today. What was that? That last one had to be 45, 50 minutes, huh?
I think it was, it was 50 minutes.
Okay, y'all
That's
getting
all right,
over
though.
on us.
What are they?
Yeah, nah.
I don't know what he's
I'm just
talking
talking.
about. So yeah, this guy, I remember hearing about this guy on fucking, I think I saw a documentary about him like a really, really long time ago, because this happened like way back in the 80s. And there was also a made-for-TV movie about this guy called Easy Prey.
Yeah.
It's actually on YouTube if you want to look it up. I watched some of it the other day. Gerald McRaney playing Christopher Wilder, the so-called beauty queen killer.
Yeah.
Who actually spookily looks a lot like him. So.
Yeah, this guy's kind of like a wannabe. What was his name? Ted Bundy. Kind of like a wannabe Ted Bundy.
Yeah, their modus operandi is very, very.
Yeah,
similar.
he's kind of a good-looking photographer.
Well, okay looking.
Well, yeah.
I don't know if I'd go as far as
It
good
wasn't
looking.
as bad looking as a lot of serial killers. But.
True, that's true. He did actually.
Although
kind
he
of look
wasn't
like
as
a
good
human.
looking as Bundy. Bundy was the Playgirl centerfold of fucking serial killers. Yeah.
Yeah, if they ever do like a.
He was still a shipper though.
Well, yeah.
He was a shipper.
Just goes to show it doesn't matter if you're good looking.
No.
You can still be a
He
serial
was a
killer.
shipper.
You know, they don't come out looking like a particular thing. They just look like everyone else. But yeah, so this guy, I actually mentioned him briefly on the show that we did about the Wanda Beach murders in Australia, because he is considered a suspect for that, because the killing of the 2 girls, Marion Schmidt and Christine Sherrick, that is very similar to his later MO. And he was in the area at the time because he was actually born in Australia. His mother was Australian. His father was a United States naval officer. He didn't have like a real unusual childhood. He wasn't abused as far as I know. He was very sickly. He was very sickly from when he was born. When he was born, they thought he was going to die, but he actually did pull through and he made it. But, you know, like I said, he was just a real sickly kid. But other than that, nothing super weird. But then when he got into his teenage years, he started doing shit like, you know, peeping Tom type stuff, you know, that kind of thing.
So you could start out that way.
So you could see that he was kind of heading for trouble. When he was 17 years old, and like I said, this is the thing that brought him to the attention of authorities for the Wanda Beach murders, because it's very similar. He was 17, and him and a bunch of his friends actually gang raped a girl on a beach in Sydney, Australia. And he was arrested.
Wait, but hold on. You can get a bunch of friends together and go do this shit?
That's what I mean. And that's like with the last guy. It's like you just get people to go along with you. I don't understand that at all.
That's some weird shit.
I don't understand that at all.
Is that lead content? I'm telling you.
Honestly, I think you probably have some. Like I said, I think there's a lot of factors, but that's probably a really big one.
I mean, not in the Western world. I mean, you know what I mean? There are certain cultures where shit like that happens, but not around here.
Yeah, it's like you don't just...
Australia is the civilized world. What are you talking about? Kind of the civilized world.
They might dispute you.
They kind of. They got some badass cars, though. The old Ford Falcons and shit. Yeah.
But yeah, so... And again, he gets somebody who's like, hey, let's go rape this girl. And was like, yeah, I suppose so. So, yeah, they do that. He gets arrested. Now, I guess because he was a minor, he pleaded guilty. So they gave him a year of probation. He had to go to counseling, and they gave him electroshock therapy.
Ugh.
Because,
yeah.
you know. This
trying to shock it out of him.
This was back in the 60s.
Yeah.
So evidently, this made him worse. Because he kind of, like, got off on it, and then he was like, oh, I can shock girls. And he, like, got off on the idea of, like, shocking women that he was having sex with. You know what I mean?
With electric shock?
So that was, like, something, and that was something that he would do later on, too.
Okay.
But so, electroshock therapy, it didn't work, particularly not in this case.
All right, let's hear more about it.
So, yeah. Now, he got a little bit older. He's in his early 20s. Now, he did get married. You know, how long that marriage lasted? 8 days. She found out about his shit and she was like, bye. Yeah. And she took the fuck off. Right. He also got in trouble for some other, you know, I don't want to say minor shit, but, you know, he was trying to lure women to pose naked for him, you know, other kind of shit like that. But nothing that really got any charges pressed against him.
Right. Nothing illegal so far.
Yeah. I mean, it's illegal, but if they don't press charges, then there's nothing they can do about it. So he had been to the U.S. when he was a kid because, like I said, his dad was an American. So in 1969, he decides he's going to emigrate to the United States, and he moves there. And he moves to Florida. So he's like Florida man, transplanted. Yeah, Florida man. This guy's Florida man.
Mad Max Florida man.
This is like Florida man to the 10th power.
Yeah, he's Australian.
Yeah. Now, he actually, he wasn't a loser. Like, he had a good business. Like, he did construction and electrical work. He got into real estate. So he had a couple mil. You know what I mean? Okay. He wasn't poor. He had a really nice house. He had, like, flashy cars and, you know, expensive watches and all that kind of crap. So he's got all that going for him, and yet he still can't stop himself from doing this fucking scumbaggy shit because he just, like I said,
because it's in him.
He just can't help himself, I guess.
Yeah.
So 1971, which is only a couple years after he moved to the U.S., he again was trying to like lure women into posing naked for him and like trying to force them to pose naked. He got turned in by the victim that time. But they didn't take it all that seriously, so he just got a fine and they let him go. Then his next thing, like I said, escalation. He was in a house doing like renovation because, like I said, he had a construction business, and he forced a high school student to perform oral sex on him.
Damn.
And she went to the cops.
Oh yeah.
So, like I said, good for her.
Right.
Now, they arrested him, and he actually did go to trial. But they basically, here's what he said, that he didn't think that he had done anything wrong, kind of thing. He just thought it wasn't that big a deal, or, you know, he wanted her, so it was fine.
Yeah.
So the judge was like, well, they had a psychiatrist like look at him, and they're like, well, I don't think he should be let out because they said he's not safe in an unstructured environment.
Right.
That was the terminology they used. And they had another psychiatrist come and they're just like, okay, well, he needs serious therapy. He needs to be put like, I'm imagining they wanted to put him like in a mental institution because they thought he had some real problems. So Christopher Wilder, he tries to get his lawyer to like make a deal or just like go to the hospital or anything like that. But the case went to trial anyway, but then he got acquitted. So he's back out again on the street. So he seems to have not done anything too terrible for the next 3 years, but that one was an actual rape. Now this is when, and like I said, if you've seen, there's a very famous documentary about him. There was a made-for-TV movie that came out, I think, in 1986 about him. This is like his standard MO. He goes around saying that his name is David Pierce. He goes to malls and he approaches pretty young women or, young teenagers, tells them that he's a fashion photographer and they're the most beautiful girl ever. Sometimes he gives them money, like, I'll pay you to do a photo shoot, blah, blah, blah. And then he tries to like lure them out to his car, like, come see my portfolio or come to this place where I can take pictures of you or whatever.
Yeah. The dude with the camera. You always got to watch that dude with the camera.
Well, watch any dude.
Watch any dude
really,
with the camera. Yeah.
that comes up to you and starts talking to you.
There's a whole trope in the club scene of the dude with the camera. Now they're not all bad. We got a friend who's a
I was gonna say don't shit on people.
Sometimes there's this dude with a camera. That's back in the day though. Everybody's got a camera. Their phone's a camera.
Yeah, so it's not like, but back in the 80s, girls. I mean, if you're walking around in the mall with your cool foofy hair and your big shoulder pads and shit,
with a camera,
and some dude comes up to the camera and is like, "Hey, you're so beautiful. Can I take a picture of you?" The answer is no.
Run.
But the problem is that even the girls that did that, he would usually get them anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he'd find a way.
Right, so he would find a way around it. So it wasn't even just like, "Hey, fuck off, Jack." That sometimes did not work either. So same thing. He goes in. He says, "I'm a photographer." He approaches actually 2 girls.
He purchases 2 girls?
No, he approached them.
Oh, okay.
I said.
I thought you said okay.
You were drunk and you're not hearing things
said
correctly. No, I said he approached them.
Okay.
Dummy. So he goes up to 2 girls. One of them says, "Nah, man," and like, "Fuck off." The other one was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." So she goes out to the parking lot. He drugs her and then rapes her in his truck. She also went to the cops and turned him in. Now, again, this is the luckiest motherfucker ever. He's going around like fucking exposing himself, raping people, shit like that. He goes to trial and then he gets it plea bargained down to like, I think he got probation. Like he said, "I'll go to sex therapy" or something. Yeah. Right? And he's
Weird.
like, he gets out. Yeah. So
this is 71, 72. Yeah.
Yeah. This is like early 70s. So, like I said, I guess they really didn't think it was that big a deal.
What state was this again? I forgot.
Florida.
Okay.
Florida, the one we're sitting in right
now.
now.
Well, early 70s, there was a bad prison overcrowding problem at that time.
Yeah.
There were, I think, even some states were just letting guys out.
Yeah.
And some of those guys had committed murders, and they were letting them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad time.
So it's probably the case. What happened here? So he said, "Yeah, I'm just gonna go see a sex therapist. I don't really know what I'm doing. I have blackouts and I don't know what's going on." So whatever. So they let him go to therapy and blah blah. Now he goes back to Australia to visit his parents. And this is years later. This is like in 1982. Now, while he was in Australia, like I said, he couldn't fucking help himself. He grabs 2 15-year-old girls on a beach, forcing them to pose naked for pictures, and then forced them into like subservient positions and masturbated on them. This is very, very similar to the Wanda Beach murders case. Although, like I said, in that case, obviously the 2 girls were murdered. These ones were not. But this was the same thing that happened at Wanda Beach. The 2 girls were teenagers and they hadn't been raped, but they had like semen on them.
This dude's got some serious balls, man.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's just doing this shit with impunity.
Well, the thing about this guy that has always fascinated me, and like I said, I think I saw a fucking documentary about him like back in the fucking 80s or 90s, and I was just like, what the this like really freaked me out because it was the 80s mall culture. It's like, everybody hung out at the mall and it's like some creep comes up and like suddenly fucking rapes and murders you.
Yeah.
But the thing that fascinates me the most about him is that even though it's like he couldn't stop himself, like even when the fucking FBI was chasing him, even when he just like
He still got to do his thing.
he just like kept going to malls and picking girls up and like raping them and shooting them. It's like, what the fuck, man?
Because this was his sexual orientation.
I guess
Literally, this was his sexual orientation.
Yeah, I guess that's one way of putting it.
This was his, what they call today, he identified as this. This is what he was.
Yeah, I guess. But like I said, it's like he couldn't even stop himself, even when he was in trouble and he was going to get caught. It's just like seemed really stupid. Maybe he was suicidal. I don't know.
No, he thought he was smarter than everybody else, and that he'd get away with it.
Yeah.
And he was just trying to go from one fix to the next.
Anybody that thinks they're smarter than anyone
I'm going to get off on this one.
You're
And I'm going to get
smarter
off
than
on that one. I'm going to get off on this one. Nobody's going to stop me. This is gonna,
Yeah, so he gets arrested in Australia because the two girls, of course, like immediately ran to the police and was like, "Please pick this creep up." So his parents paid his bail, and evidently they didn't have any problem with him leaving the country and going back to his house in Florida.
Wow.
So, you know.
Okay.
So at this stage, I think this is where his substantial... They call him a serial killer. It was almost like a spree, like what he did, because it was only like 3 or 4 months, like a period of 3 or 4 months, and he's like driving around the country, just going to malls and picking girls up and fucking. It was just like unbelievable.
Jerking off on them. And
well, he raped some of them too. It's like, you know what I mean. But that particular one where he just like masturbated on them, that reminded me very much of Wanda Beach, which is probably why he's a suspect in that. Although they're never gonna. No, because he's dead now, but...
He was a jack-off artist.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm kind of fucking sick. Bitch.
So, I know. So, all right. So this jackhole comes back to Florida.
Yeah, I'm laughing at this guy.
And immediately, like, starts this fucking spree, right?
Yeah.
He picks up... he goes to the Merritt Square shopping mall. He picks up a girl named Terry Ferguson. She was 21 years old. So she had been seen around the mall. She had been wandering in the mall, and you know, he came up to her and said, "Hey, you know, I'm a photographer. You're beautiful. Blah blah blah." And then and then she disappeared. Now her stepfather went to the mall and found her car still parked there, so they were freaking out, and they like called the police and stuff like that. Now, an hour after the last sighting of her, Christopher Wilder, he actually got his car stuck in the sand and had to call a tow truck. So the tow truck comes out there, and they note that this car is where the car is parked. It's like a known lover's lane, but he is by himself. So they thought that was a little odd. So they asked him, "What are you doing out here?" He said, "Oh, I just got lost." He ended up paying for the tow truck with his business partner's credit card, which they later found out was stolen. But they didn't know that at the time, so he went on his way. 5 days later, there was a body found about 70 miles west of where Terry Ferguson lived in a canal, and this was identified as the body of Terry Ferguson. So when they found the body, all the people like from the mall that had seen her, they said, "Oh yeah, we saw her talking to this guy," and they described a guy that looked very much.
So
like
that's the first. This is the first death associated with
that
this
they
guy.
know of.
Okay.
That they know of. Yeah, he went from peeping Tom when he was a teenager to, you know, just sexual assault, rape.
That's the typical escalation. That's the typical path.
Pretty much.
It's safer to kill them, so that's what they do because they don't want to get caught.
Yeah. So
they can't stop it. It's compulsive.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
And in case I didn't mention it, that was end of March, 1984. So his next victim was from Tallahassee, and she was kidnapped from a shopping mall near Florida State University. Now, he actually left her in a motel. What he would do, and this is what I was thinking of before when I was thinking about David Parker Ray, what he would do is he would take them to a cheap motel. He would tie them up, or tie them to the bed. He would super glue their eyelids shut.
Damn.
And he had this thing where he would rig up like copper wire and stuff, so he would like shock their feet. Remember, like I said, because he was into electroshock therapy, and that was like how he got off.
Yeah.
And then he would rape them multiple times.
He'd plug it into the wall.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's how that went. Yeah.
That's 110 volts. That'd kill you easily.
Yeah, so he would just like shock the bottoms of their feet. So he would like take
Enough
these
amperage.
girls to motel rooms and rape them in there and do various things. Now, this girl, she was 19 years old. Now, at this point, the FBI got involved because he kidnapped her and then he took her over the state line. He took her into Georgia. So, yeah. Now, she actually got away because the weird thing about him is that a lot of people said that he was super, super into, like, TV. Like, he would just sit there and, like, stare at the TV and he'd get all, like, into it and shit. So, they're in the hotel room that night and he's, like, raped and tortured this girl over the previous few hours. And then he gets all into something on TV and she starts thinking, maybe I could, like, escape. You know what I mean? So she starts kind of creeping toward the edge of the bed and, like, she kind of gets loose. And she jumps out of bed. He goes, they have, like, a struggle and she's, like, able to push him off. And she runs in the bathroom and locks herself in. And then she starts screaming her head off and banging on the walls and shit like that so that, you know, people in the other hotel rooms can hear her. And this apparently freaked him out so bad that he just gathered all his shit and left.
So it's a good place.
So, yeah. So good for her. Like I
Yeah.
said, that was a fucking brave, but I guess she probably thought, well, he's going to kill me otherwise.
Yeah, you got nothing to lose.
Yeah. So she like was banging on the wall and stuff. And then she stayed in the bathroom for like half an hour because she thought he was still out there and just like being quiet. You know, so she just like stayed in there. And finally she like snuck out and she went to the hotel manager's office. She didn't have any clothes on. She just had like a bed sheet and she was all like, her hair was all bloody and shit like that. And she said what had happened. So she was actually able to tell, the police like what kind of car he was driving and all this other kind of shit. So they could put out like an APB. And like I said, at this point, the FBI was becoming involved. They had suspected him in some of these missing persons cases prior to this, but because he had taken her over a state line, now the FBI could step in, you know, officially. But they had been investigating him kind of like off the record for a little bit before this. So they got the name. I don't know if he registered under his real name or if it was a fake name. I think he actually registered at the motel under his business partner's name because he was using that guy's credit card. But they had a description of him and stuff like that. All his stuff was gone from the hotel room, but they did find like blood stains all over the wall and shit like that. So she told police the same thing. And like he had come up to her and said, hey, I'll give you $25 an hour. And she said he didn't seem like a creep. Like he seemed really nice. He wasn't pushy. You know, he was very well dressed. He had like a really nice suit and shit like that. And she said, I wasn't going to go with him, but then I decided, oh, he's probably all right because he didn't seem creepy or dangerous. But the thing is, she goes out with him to the car because he's like, oh, I've got like my portfolio out of my car in the parking lot. And he starts showing her like all these magazines. Oh, I took this picture and I took that picture. And then she started getting kind of nervous and she's like, okay, yeah, never mind. I'm just going to go. But then he punched her. And so she wasn't going to go with him, but he made her go anyway. So you know what I mean? So he like just punched her in the stomach and punched her in the face and shoved her in the car and took off. So, and she didn't know where she was because she had like duct tape over her face and everything like that. So she had actually been in the hotel for several days, like, you know, been raped and tortured. And I think he shaved her pubic hair off. It's like he would hold a knife to her vagina. It's like, well, how does this make you feel? It's just like he did all that kind of crap. It's like fucked up. So, another thing he did too was he had, like I said, he was TV obsessed. Like it was the 80s, so he finds like a show with like a bunch of girls doing aerobics, and he made her do that. And
He made her do the aerobics?
Yeah.
even
though her eyes were glued shut and she was all beat up and everything.
Damn.
And if she didn't do it right, he would shock her feet.
Weird.
I'm like, just fuck, man. Horrible. So, yeah. So the next one was actually in Texas. So he's, like I said, he's driving all over the place. He's just driving. And I think at some point he stopped at a bank because they got his stupid ugly mug on the fucking bank camera or whatever. And he took out like $19,000 or something like that. So he was clearly they think that he was probably trying to leave the country, but he was like going out in a blaze of glory, I guess.
Yeah.
Because he was like just everywhere he stopped, he would kidnap somebody.
Well, he's doing this like there's no tomorrow, probably because he
Yeah.
figured there was no tomorrow.
That's kind of the impression that I'm getting. Like they don't know if he knew that he wasn't going to make it or if he was actually trying to get out of the country. So like if he'd wanted to get out of the country, you'd think he would have headed right for it instead of taking this circuitous route.
I think he's one of those guys that was kind of going headlong, out of control.
It did seem like
he
that.
He didn't know what was going to happen from one day to the next. He was just going to ride the train
Yeah.
and go wherever it took him.
Yeah.
And he probably thought that he was going to die in a blaze of glory against the cops. Probably what he thought was going to happen.
Yeah. Which is kind of how it wasn't a blaze of glory, but
yeah,
he did die like that.
Right.
The next victim was Terry Walden. She was 24 years old. She was a nurse. She was actually married and had a couple of kids. Now, she had told her husband, apparently Christopher Wilder had approached her several days before he kidnapped her, asking if she would model for him. And she said no. And then, like, he kept, like, bugging her about, hey, come out to my car. And she's just like, no, man, leave me alone. And it had creeped her out, so she told her husband about it. But then he didn't really think anything of it when she disappeared, like, a couple days later. Like, he didn't remember her saying that. So they found her body a couple days later. She was floating face down in a canal. She had actually not been raped, but it looked like, she'd been tied up and beaten and stabbed a bunch of times. So I don't know if, it was a situation where it looked like he hadn't been able to do what he did with a lot of the other victims, which was like keep them in a hotel room for an extended period of time. She had all her clothes on, so I don't know if she fought him and he just ended up stabbing her and dumping her. I don't know. So, like I said, at this point, FBI are involved. He's like switching cars because he's like taking some of the victims' cars. So they're kind of trying to stay on his trail. At some point, they put him on the top 10 fugitives list so they could splash his face and make a car like all over the TV. March 25th, he kidnapped a girl named Suzanne Logan. She was 21. This was in Oklahoma City, same thing, in a mall. Now, she had dropped her husband off at work at the mall, and then he was the one that reported her missing because she didn't come back to pick him up. They found her the same day that they found Terry Walden floating in a reservoir. She had been tortured and raped and had been stabbed to death. This was another thing too, where he shaved off the pubic hair. He cut off her hair. She had like really long blonde hair. He had cut off all her hair, and they later found it like in a motel room trash can. So that's where he'd been keeping her. The next one happened in Colorado. That was Cheryl Bonaventura. She was 18. She was also kidnapped from a mall, the Grand Junction Mall. Several witnesses saw a man that they described looking like Christopher Wilder that saw them together and said that he'd been soliciting women at the mall. So he wasn't like... It's dumb because I think at this point he knew that they were looking for him. But he doesn't seem to be making any effort to, like, disguise his face or change up his MO or anything. He's just stopping at shopping malls and doing the same shit he always does.
Yeah, weird.
Like trying to get girls to come out to the car and then whacking them over the head.
He's just trying to get that next girl.
Yeah, it's
That's
just...
all, like
and
a
it's
crackhead.
like... Yeah, and it's only, like, a couple days, like, in between. And he's just, like, driving, and then every time he stops, he goes to him like he can't help himself, like I said.
It's a sex addict.
Yeah. So Cheryl Bonaventura, she went missing. She was not found until much later on. In the meantime, Christopher Wilder turns up in Las Vegas. Now, this was the case that I remembered the most because this creeped me out. There was a mall in Las Vegas, and they were having like a fashion show. 17 magazine was having a little fashion show there, and they were having like a model search or whatever. So there's this girl, Michelle Kaufman. She was 17 years old. And she was at this particular fashion show and went missing that same day. Now, they suspected, the FBI suspected that Christopher Wilder was behind this, so they asked anybody that was at that fashion show to please turn in any photographs they might have taken at this fashion show. And one of the photographs showed Michelle Kaufman up on the runway like with her little fashion outfit on, and right down there in the seat, looking right at her, was Christopher Wilder. And I was like, that is some creepy ass shit right there. And I found the photo online too, and he's just like looking at her like all creepy and blah. So yeah, that's kind of horrible. So like I said, at this point, he's been added to the 10 most wanted list. His fucking face is all over the TV. But they're having a hard time catching him because, he doesn't seem to be going in a particular direction. Because at first they were like, well, maybe he's heading for Mexico so he doesn't get extradited. But then he like starts heading back east again. Like you know what I mean? And he keeps like switching cars, switching license plates. He's using a stolen credit card or several stolen credit cards, sometimes using cash. So they're having a hard time finding him. This was 1984. It's not like they can't like ping your cell phone.
It's not like it is today.
Yeah. So it's not like that. So they kind of have, they did like a little bit of a profile on him, saying, like I said, he had more of a, he had kind of a Ted Bundy quality. He had more qualities of a spree killer, actually, rather than a serial killer, just because, he's going around doing this like it was an addiction, like he couldn't stop himself. So, one creepy thing too is that in the process of trying to get like a better profile on him, they started interviewing like people that he knew, and they actually found a videotape. I guess he had made, remember like those old-timey like dating services where you'd make like a videotape of yourself like talking about yourself, like that they would show to other people that came into the dating agency?
No, tell us all about it, Jenny.
No, I'm just saying that from the 80s they had that kind of shit.
Yeah,
right?
I know. I heard about it.
I heard about it too.
I heard it was kind of like a video rental store.
Yeah.
That you'd
I
pay
guess
a
it was
membership
like
and go in there and you'd see all these videos up with people, with women's or whatever, people's photographs on them, and you checked them out, took them home and you watched it. And then you asked those people to go on a date with you, type of deal.
Yeah, it seemed like I saw them on like TV shows and stuff like that.
In Boston, they had dating services that were like that.
Yeah, I think that's what this was.
It was kind of like, they were kind of like Blockbuster.
Yeah.
It was Blockbuster.
Blockbuster for dating.
For dating.
I would like to rent a person, please.
It was like Tinder, but it was 3D. And
we had to do everything the hard way back in the 80s. We didn't have all this easy newfangled technology.
And shit wasn't cheap either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he actually, he had made a videotape for one of these dating services back in 1981. And they said that on the tape, he like talked a bunch about himself, which probably you shouldn't do.
Yeah, you talk about yourself.
But he said he wanted a long relationship, but not marriage. And he said he was looking for a woman of depth and sincerity. I'm like,
okay.
All right, buddy. He also indicated that he preferred women in their early 20s, even though he was in his 30s at this point. So he wasn't like, it wasn't that creepy. Like, it wasn't like he was 70 or anything.
Back in those
like
times, that was a normal age difference.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, now this part's really disturbing. So, the next victim that he kidnapped was a 16-year-old girl named Tina Marie Rosico. Now, he kidnapped her from a mall. She wasn't there modeling or anything like that. She was there filling out a job application, I think at Hickory Farms or something. So he comes up to her. He says, hey, I'll give you $100. Let me take pictures. She's kind of reluctant, but finally she goes along with him. So he actually took her to a place and was like taking pictures of her and stuff. But then like when she turned back around, he was pointing a gun at her face and he like, forced her into the car.
Damn.
Now, the weird thing about this is that for whatever reason, he decided that he wasn't going to kill her, but that he was going to make her help him pick up other victims.
I remember hearing
this
about
poor
this.
girl is 16 years old. Now, she got raped and tortured and all the usual shit that he would do. Like, he would take her to a hotel and do all that stuff. But for some reason, there was something about her that thought that would make it easier for him to pick up victims, I guess.
She was probably really pliant.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but she actually ended up living, but this is kind of like, I couldn't imagine, like, living with this kind of shit. Because, people had seen her. At first, the cops were like, oh, she just ran away and blah, blah, blah. But then finally they figured out, oh, probably this motherfucker has her. So he makes her go and pick up this other 16-year-old girl whose name was Dawnette Wilt. And this was in Gary, Indiana. So like I said, they're driving all over the fucking place.
Place is a wasteland now.
Yeah. Well,
Gary.
yeah, so Dawnette is in Gary, Indiana. She's filling out a job application, and this other 16-year-old girl, who was Tina Marie Rosico, comes up to her and says, can you come outside, to speak to the store manager? And the store manager, quote unquote, was Christopher Wilder. So he grabs Dawnette, like forces her into the car with a gun. And then he takes them both to a motel, and then Tina Marie is just like having to sit there, watch him like raping and torturing this girl while she just sits there and can't do anything about it.
Well, at 16, a person's very young, of course, and
Well,
very
yeah.
impressionable. She's probably terrified.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, total mind control over her,
She did,
So,
because, I think a lot of people later on were kind of like, because a couple times, like, he left her alone in a car and said, well, why didn't you run away and shit like that. It's like,
Petrified.
yeah, she was probably fucking terrified, as
Yeah.
you would be, because he
Yeah.
told her, don't you dare try to escape while killing. They believed him.
Yeah, like a rabbit in the headlights.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, they were only 16, for Christ's sake. That's just like, that's a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and so what he does, he drives out to these woods, and he leaves Tina Marie in the car, but then he takes Dawnette like out into the woods, and he first like tried to suffocate her or strangle her or something like that, and that didn't work. So then he stabbed her like front and back, and then just left her. Now, like I said, Tina Marie was left in the car, but she didn't run away because she was like terrified. So he drives off for a little bit, and then he thinks, oh, well, maybe I should go back and make sure she's dead because I only stabbed her 2 times and maybe that wasn't sufficient. So he drives back to where he stabbed the girl, and she was gone. She took off. She was able to get up and get to the road, and she got help. So, again, good for her. So yeah, because he was going to go back and shoot her, but she got the fuck out of there. So after that, like, even that did not deter him. He just like keeps on going, he keeps on going. Next time he ends up in fucking Eastview Mall. This is in Victor, New York.
This guy's driving everywhere.
He's just, yeah, like I said, he's just going everywhere. He gets Tina Marie to go and lure this woman who was actually 33, so a little bit older than his usual target. Her name was Beth Dodge, and she was just getting out of her car in the parking lot, and they said, she said, hey, can you come over here for a minute? And when she came over there, like, he forced her in the car at gunpoint. And then he didn't even rape her or anything. He just took her car. Like, he just took her to a gravel pit and shot her, and then just took her Trans Am.
Damn.
And then,
What?
yeah.
She wasn't hot enough to rape, so he just killed her.
I guess, yeah, 33, that's so
Yeah,
old.
yeah, she was over the hill.
Right, I guess so. And then at this point, like, after he steals the car and he just shoots this woman and leaves her in a fucking gravel pit, he drives to Logan Airport in Boston. He gives Tina Marie a bunch of money and says, buy a plane ticket home. And get a cab.
He must have felt sorry for her in some way.
Yeah, she said later on, like when she was talking to the police, she said that he told her that I don't want you around when I die. So I think that he knew that it was all coming to a head. And she said she was, I mean, like I said, this poor girl. And she actually, I know it wasn't her fault, but I'm sure she probably thought it was her fault that she like contributed.
Yeah, she probably had a survivor's guilt,
Yeah, like you would never get over
Baby,
that.
if you listen and you were only 16, a little youngster
That's what
like
I mean.
yourself,
It's like
that
it
bad
wasn't her
man did
fault.
that. Yeah, come on.
It wasn't her fault. I really, really hope she.
Your brain isn't well formed at that time, and fucking, you're applying, you do what you're told at 16.
And I'm telling you too that it's like, and particularly women, particularly young women, we think everything is our fault anyway, even shit that can't conceivably be our fault.
Yeah.
So
he kept her alive because she was a deer in the headlights. He figured he would use her that way.
But yeah,
but there was no way. There was really
there was nothing she could have done.
No, a girl at 16, totally defenseless in the face. Of
yeah, it's like
that.
he was armed. He had knives and guns, and he was much
older,
bigger
more
than her.
Sophisticated, yeah.
He would have killed her. I'm sure he would have. He had done
if
it
she didn't
before.
comply, he'd have killed her.
Yeah. So, I don't blame her at all.
Yeah.
But she said it was sad because she's like, even when I was like walking to the airport, like to go get on the plane, she's like, I was sure that he was just going to come up and shoot me in the back. Yeah. She's like, I didn't really believe that he was going to live, but she did. She went home. So at this stage, so his little, the victim that he had there that was using to get other victims, he let her go. Then it was April 13th. He tried to get another girl who was 19. Her car had broken down. She was just like standing on the side of the road. Christopher Wilder rolls up and says, "Hey, I'll give you a lift to get gas." And she's like, "Yeah, thanks." She gets in the car, and then he passed the gas station, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And then he pulls a gun on her, and she jumped the fuck out of the car. She just jumped out while it was moving and rolled and whatever. Now, at this stage, he drives to New Hampshire and stops at a service station in Colebrook. This is about 12 miles from the Canadian border, so they think that he probably was trying to cross into Canada. While he was talking to the attendant, because I think he asked the attendant about, what all paperwork am I going to need to cross the border and blah, blah, blah. There were 2 cops at the service station, and they recognized the car because it had belonged to one of the victims. And they said, "Hey, that's that guy that everyone's looking for." Like, they recognized him. So they started talking to this, like, okay, well, we got to do something about this. So they get out, they pulled up alongside him. They called out his name. He dives inside the vehicle, which, assuming he's trying to get his gun because he's going to, like, shoot at the cops. And one of the troopers, like, jumps on the guy's back, you know what I mean? And grabbing for his gun. And 2 shots went off. Now, the trooper was shot in the liver. He actually ended up surviving. The other shot went right through Christopher Wilder's heart and exploded it.
What heart? That motherfucker didn't have a heart.
Yeah, where his heart should have been.
Yeah.
But at any rate, it killed him instantly.
Good riddance, you piece of shit.
Right. So he died on Friday the 13th. 47 days since the first reported disappearance, 26 days on the run.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this guy, and the shit they found, like, they found guns, ammo, rope, tape, all that kind of shit in his car. They also found what was his favorite book, The Collector by John Fowles.
Oh, okay, so that takes us back to fucking Leonard Lake.
Yep.
Leonard Lake loved that book.
Same book.
Yep.
And it's about an entomologist. He collects butterflies and stuff like that, and he decides he's going to collect a person. So this beautiful woman named Miranda that he's in love with, and he decides he's going to kidnap her, and he's going to treat her nice, but she can't leave, like she's his prisoner. And it's this kind of fucked up story. And for some reason, like, guys with this type of
personality
were really into this book, and he had a copy of it in his car, like, when they went through all his shit. So yeah,
that's loser shit, man.
That's what I mean. But it's just weird. And like I said, when we did the show about Leonard Lake, he was into that book too. Like, oh, that's like their ultimate fantasy, like keeping a woman and like then she falls in love with them.
Well, they can't earn a woman by their own merit.
Right. So they have to like force
collect
her into
one.
it.
Yeah, force them into it, of course.
It's like I just have to keep her locked up until she realizes how awesome I am, and then she falls in love with me. That's kind of, and I'm like, man, that's messed up.
You can't attract a woman, so you have to fucking capture a woman.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and they all seem to be doing that. So it's fucked up. So later on, they actually ended up finding some of the victims that had gone missing that they hadn't found the bodies. They found Cheryl Bonaventura in Utah, shot and stabbed. And they also found Michelle Korfman, the 17-year-old who had vanished from the Las Vegas shopping mall where she had been at the 17 fashion show. And with the picture of him looking at her. Yeah. They found her body as well. Yeah. They also think that he was linked to some other murders also. There was a girl that went missing from Miami racetrack. She worked there. And they think they had seen people had seen the two of them together. He was a race car driver, also, like he was a hobbyist, and they suspect that he probably killed her as well. And as I said, they also think he was a suspect in the Wanda Beach murders from 1965.
If memory serves, they found a girl who fits the profile of one of his victims. They found her dead out in the desert.
Yeah.
And they think that maybe he took her out there for a photo shoot and fucking raped and killed her. Isn't that the same guy? Are we talking about the same one?
Probably, because like I said, his official tally that they know of is 8 victims, but they suspect that he probably
Yeah.
killed a lot more than
Okay,
that.
well, on the side, there was another case that I can remember associated with this guy. They found a pretty girl who kind of was hanging out in a mall.
Yeah.
And she disappeared.
Yeah.
They found her out in the middle of the desert on a big rock formation. Just her bones. They think that he took her out there for some kind of desert photo shoot. Raped and killed her out there.
Well, that might have been one of the ones that I was just talking about.
Okay.
Like maybe that one he took from Vegas or
Did they okay?
whatever. They did find her.
Didn't specify where they found the body. One I was thinking of was in a rock formation.
Cheryl
like a
Bonaventura was found in Utah, but they didn't say if it was a rock formation.
It was like a pretty rock formation, where you would do a photo shoot out in the desert. So it's where I remember it. And they thought he had taken her out there for a photo shoot and killed her.
Yeah.
Brunette. And she had done some modeling. They actually showed
some of the
photos.
girls that he kidnapped had done modeling in the past.
Yeah.
So I guess they wouldn't have been quite as suspicious of someone like coming up to them. And all the ones that survived said that he didn't seem creepy.
Right.
Like he seemed normal and he seemed really nice and he wasn't even pushy or anything like that.
It's the same guy then.
Yeah. So
I just don't remember what girl it was.
like I said, I feel like this guy is interesting because not only because he has aspects of both like spree killer and serial killer, but also even though his victim profile and the way he picked up his victims was always the same, he didn't always kill them the same. Like some of them were shot, some of them were stabbed, some of them were strangled or suffocated or whatever. And some of them he just, like that one woman, Beth Dodge, he just killed her because he wanted her car. Like, he didn't even do anything to her. He just took her to a gravel pit and shot her in the back or whatever.
She wasn't a true victim. She was just in the way of what he wanted. He just
wanted a car, and he just carjacked her.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, just by looking at the ages of the girls that he killed, he liked them young.
Yeah, they were almost always teenagers.
He wasn't attracted to
or
women.
Early 20s.
I don't think a guy like this was even attracted to women who were hot, who were in their 30s.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I think women actually get better looking as they get older a lot of times. But they have guys like that. There's something with their psyche. I think it's probably have something to do with their self-confidence. They don't feel powerful around a mature woman.
Yeah.
They want to feel powerful around young,
I do feel like that's
part of what it is.
A lot of, like, it does seem like guys that are into really a lot younger women than them.
Yeah, they can't manipulate a woman in their 30s.
I think that's exactly what it is. They want to, like, lord it over somebody or feel like they have power over somebody, and they feel like they can't do that with someone that's the same age as them. Yeah. Like, it's more like they're equal. Like, they can't deal with it. So I do definitely feel like this guy had that kind of thing going on.
Could have also been the times. In those days, if you looked at like Playboy magazine and mainstream kind of pornography, it was younger women. That's what was being aimed at men. And that's what they were kind of fixating on, which was women in their prime fertility, which in their minds back then, they thought that was around 19.
Yeah.
But, nowadays, that isn't so much the case. I mean, you look at the porn industry today, some of the most popular ones, are in their 40s.
MILFs.
MILF porn. And MILF porn is fucking super popular with young men.
I know that was something that I always found really interesting because I guess since, like you, I grew up in the 80s and stuff, and it did seem like, I didn't know, like, a huge amount of porn, but it did seem like they were all, like, super young. And so it kind of interested me to see more modern porn and how even like guys in their 20s are like into porn stars that are like in their 40s.
Yeah. Well, we know people in the club. I mean, remember that young guy that was just in love with you and
oh, that's right. Yeah.
What was his name again?
Oh, I can't remember. And he was young. Yeah,
he was super
18.
young.
He was 18.
He's like 18, and he just thought that fucking you and Sonia. Yeah, it was Sonia. That's who it was.
And Sonia's older than me.
Yeah. Thought that you and Sonia were just the baddest women on the planet. Sonia took his ass home, too.
She did, yeah.
Yeah. I saw him. He came back next to him. He had a big old smile on his face. I said, got you some education, didn't you, boy?
I remember that.
Yeah, he was just in love with her. Yeah.
It's funny because, I mean, I've known some guys that were like 18 or 19 but seemed older. He didn't.
No, he seemed younger than
seemed
18.
like a very young
Yeah.
person.
And his mom was...
I think he joined the military later.
Yeah,
didn't he?
he's in the Army.
Yeah, I thought he was.
He's in the Army. I told him to join the Army. He joined the Army.
Yeah, he did.
Just listened to me. But his mom was the same age as Sonia at that time.
Yeah.
Remember that?
That's what I was thinking.
We were kind of goofing on him.
Because I remember talking to him one night. And he was talking about his mom, and I was like, I was like, "What? Your mom's the same age as me, probably." Yeah. He's like, "Yeah."
And I know you guys don't know who Sonia is. Sonia basically looks like a MILF porn star. The implants, all that, little skinny, and young guys are into that.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, it's not like it was.
Because, it's like everybody's got something,
Yeah, when I was 18, I was interested in women in their 40s.
You weren't?
No, not really. No. Because every woman I knew in the 40s back in those days was pretty dumpy.
That's what I mean. It's
not the way it was.
I think it's different now because when we were growing up, like, people that were in their 40s looked old.
They looked very old, and they acted very old.
Yeah, and they acted old, and I think that
had a lot to do with it.
That maybe had a lot to do with it,
They dressed like old people. They acted like old people.
Yeah.
They thought like old people.
Yeah.
And they weren't sexy at all.
Yeah, see, maybe it's because we're kind of like in the goth scene and stuff, and there's like a lot of people in that scene that are in their 40s or even 50s.
You wouldn't know it.
You wouldn't really know it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm not sure why. I guess because they retained their youthful. So we don't go in the sun, so we don't get wrinkles.
No, it's the attitude.
Yeah, it's the attitude too, and plus, it's hard to tell how old somebody is when they dye their hair bright blue. You know what I'm saying?
And stay physically fit.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's not really the same as it used to be. I really feel like the days of like the quote unquote generation gap, when they used to talk about that.
Isn't much of a generation gap
Not
anymore.
Really, because it's like we hang out with people like
that are
half
in their
our
20s,
age,
30s, and they're like us,
or people that are older, and it's like we have like a lot in common. Like if you like we're in the same scene and everything.
We know more than them.
Yeah,
but we still have a lot more in common.
Yeah, It's just because they haven't really been around. Like
they don't know the bands, and they don't know.
Yeah, you could give them like life advice and like advice about older music that they might not know about.
It's very different.
I don't find them difficult to talk to.
No.
I mean, they seem pretty up on shit. I think the internet kind of changed everything.
Yeah, it did.
It kind of equalized.
And
a lot of things.
Younger people kind of have an appreciation for 80s culture and stuff that was happening. So they
so
80s
that's
and
another.
90s, so they know about it in general.
Yeah, because I was like that aforementioned 18-year-old kid we were talking about.
He knew everything about the music.
He knew all of the 80s songs.
Yeah.
All of them. Like he would go to the 80s night and he knew every single song. He knew all the words. He knew everything like about all the bands and everything.
Yeah, and he would talk about it like he would talk about it like it was ancient history. That he's talking about classical music.
Yeah.
And we're like laughing,
Yeah, because he wasn't even like fucking. That's just so funny to think about that he wasn't even born when all that stuff was going on. It's like, I remember when this video came out.
That was like, several years back now. He's a grown man in the Army now.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, that was a few years ago. We're talking. That's probably like 5 or 6 years ago.
He's in his early 20s now.
Yeah, but he's a cool kid. Mm-hmm. I hope he's doing all right. All right, I guess we're gonna wrap up the show. I think we've said pretty much all we need to say about these two dirtbags.
Yeah, fuck those dudes.
Yeah, well, like I said, at least they're both dead. So
and what's weird is that you don't hear about this happening anymore. We always get back to that. Where
it's
are
like,
these
I'm sure
guys?
It does, but you don't.
It doesn't go on for that long.
Yeah,
and
it's easier to catch them now.
It must be easier to catch them, and I don't think I don't think they form as easily as they used to.
Yeah.
And you can't get away with that kind of shit anymore.
True.
The cell phone, I think, has changed a lot. But I also think it's the mentality of the guys.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to what I said before. I think it had something to do with leaded gasoline.
Yeah.
Because I stumbled across the program that was talking about all those Arctic expeditions. Mm-hmm. And they're mystified at some of the decisions that were made by the people in charge of these expeditions. So they went out there and collected all the dead bodies. Some of them are buried out in graves, out in the ice. And they found them, dug them up. In some of those cases, it's like 5,000 times the normal lead content inside those bodies. Because they were using lead to seal up the tin cans that they were eating out of.
Yeah.
So they were very contaminated with lead, and they weren't thinking, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, well it's only 1,000 miles. Let's go walk.
They talked a little bit about that, like on the Terror.
Yeah,
that
the Terror.
show they had on AMC.
That was one of the ships.
Yeah.
One of the ships was the Terror, and the other, they said that they did dumbass shit.
Yeah, they were like hallucinating and like just doing stupid shit. They were like going. Some of them went crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that cold will make you hallucinate. You know, I was in the army up in Korea. 50 degrees below zero will make you hallucinate. But when they dug those dead bodies up, the lead content was fucking amazing in some of those guys. So that was part of it. And I think back in the 70s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that leaded gasoline.
Yeah.
Leaded gasoline was everywhere, and it was blowing around in all the cities, and it was building up for decades in some of those cities. And I think lead poisoning had a lot to do with the crazy shit some of these guys did.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, because like I said, I mean, not that there's not people doing fucked up shit nowadays, because there is, but it's not like it was.
They were dumb.
I mean, the 70s crazy. Were like horrifying.
Yeah.
I think that was like the worst of it, like I said.
And during the time of the 70s, there would have been at least 20 years, no, more. At least 30 years of a good 30 years of fucking lead buildup.
Yeah.
Inside those cities, blowing around little lead particles.
Yeah.
So the traffic, it had to be something like that.
Like I said, I'm sure that was a factor.
Yeah.
Maybe even the major factor.
Yeah.
Because
I remember buying leaded gasoline as a kid.
Yeah, I do too.
Remember the choice between leaded and unleaded? That's not there anymore.
Yeah, we're old kids.
We're old, yeah. And I would buy the leaded even when my car didn't need it. Because it was cheaper sometimes.
I remember actually service stations where they'd actually come out and fill up your car with gas too. Like you didn't have to do it. Yeah. I think there's still there's still a couple states where they have some of those, but I think maybe New Hampshire, I want to say, or Vermont or somewhere like that. I think they still have service stations. But I haven't seen one of those since I was little.
My leaded gasoline angle, I never heard anybody talk about it.
I have seen it mentioned. I don't remember where I read it. It might have been Psychology Today or something like that. I was just reading something about serial killers, and that was just one of like a list of factors.
Yeah.
That they mentioned, like something about lead poisoning and the environment, or whatever.
Yeah.
And like I said, legalized abortion, that was another thing. Of why the crime dropped later on. Because you weren't having people having kids that they couldn't afford or that they didn't want.
Right.
So there was less of that going on.
Less excess children.
Yeah, well, and that's what I mean. And like I said, it was less children born into poverty, less children born that were unwanted or might have ended up like in foster homes or in the system, or might have had like messed up childhoods because they were unwanted.
But a lot of these serial killers don't come from backgrounds like that.
Well, actually, a surprising amount do. Surprising amount were abused as children, at least, or neglected.
Well,
every now and then you get one with like a normal childhood and they're just messed up, but it seems like the majority of them had kind of messed up childhoods.
I was just thinking that it was just weird as shit that back in the day that they just decided to put lead in gasoline just because it could help the valves seal a little bit better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In an engine. And it kind of made an engine run a little more quietly.
Yeah.
They didn't know what they were doing, but they said, yeah, put some lead in that. It'll
that can't possibly go wrong.
It'll quiet that engine down a little bit. It'll make the valves seal.
Yeah.
And it did. But it was poisonous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, back then they didn't really think about that. They were just like, I won't hurt you. Yeah. It's fine. I can drink gasoline. Nothing will happen to me. People were idiots back then, seriously. I said, no such thing as the good old days. Everyone was stupid as shit.
Yeah, they were stupid as shit. And
they didn't know anything.
Even the United States looked like a second-rate third world nation through most of it.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, I remember the country areas of Mississippi looked very third world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it still looked like Mississippi, but it was wooden paneling on things, you know what I mean? And just cheap,
Yeah, everything looked cheap.
Everything
was cheap and brown.
Cheap, yeah. Cheap paint on things, and and it was the United States. It was supposed to be a first world country.
Yeah.
And it was 81, 78, 77. But I remember it. It was crappy.
Yeah, everything did look
Yeah.
really crappy back
It's crap.
then. It's like now when we see movies like from the, I was like, oh
And we
man.
love that shit. We go, remember how crappy that shit
Right,
fucking was?
it's like that shit was so
you'd,
ugly.
you'd remember that exact furniture with the fucking
Yeah, because I'd be
upholstery
like,
on
hey,
it.
we had that
Remember
couch.
that fucking couch? Remember how crappy that fucking couch
we had
was?
that couch.
Yeah.
It's funny because when I watched Stranger Things, they had like a bunch of shit in their house that we had
Yeah.
in my house growing up, like a lot of the dishes and stuff.
When we saw Bumblebee, that was taking place in the 80s, and some
Yeah,
of those
that's
houses,
right.
and the fucking the wood paneling in the houses, and remember those old houses, like
Yeah.
how dark they were?
Yeah. I
And
think
was-
that couch in there, we had that couch.
And in that house in the movie Bumblebee, that house would have been a nice house for the 80s.
Yeah.
But you look at it
That was
now
nicer
and
than
you
where
go
anywhere
like,
I lived.
there's not enough windows in that house. That shit fucking dark as shit. You know what I mean? Fucking dark.
Yeah,
and
it's
spooky.
really weird. They didn't put much.
No.
They didn't put many windows in houses back
No.
then. Everything was like really, really dark.
Not enough glass.
I guess.
Yeah.
Or, trying
Dark-
to save money. I don't know what it was.
Dark and kind of cheap feeling, you know?
Low ceilings.
Low ceilings, wooden
very
panels,
oppressive looking.
shag carpeting, dark shag, like brown shag carpeting.
We had green.
Yeah. You didn't have many choices back then.
Like green with gold flecks in it.
Yeah.
It was super classy.
Wrap it up. We're done.
All right, we're wrapping it up. All right, hope you enjoyed this latest episode, which was 128. And remember, if you like the show, to like, share, subscribe on all your social media. If you'd like to financially support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/13 o'clock podcast. Or if you don't like Patreon for whatever reason, and you'd still like to give a one-time donation, you can go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there's a link in the sidebar to a PayPal account. Also, check out our last movie review, which was The Man with Two Brains. Also, check out our last matinee show, which came out on Sunday. 3 new movies in the theater. And that will do it for this latest installment, and we will see you next time. Bye.